morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Go to bed already. This is one terrible start to the year. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I, of course, am Eagle Falcon. This has been a nightmare this morning. First off, I woke up late. So, any day automatically, when you start up by waking up late. First off, I woke up late. And this thing won't shut the up. Oh my god. And of course, I can't express how much... I wasn't even going to talk about this today, but I'm going to now, because this is literally ticking me off. The Twitch dashboard, this new modern layout, I have learned to start liking it again. And it insists continuously, again and again and again and again and again and again and again, to play the video preview back with the sound on. And in fact, this is now the second time I have muted and stopped the video. And now, you would assume, if you click this nice arrow that minimizes various blocks of the dashboard, that the video preview wouldn't play at all. Nope. That is not the case. So, now that I got that little rant out of the way, how about I actually go through and actually explain what has all gone wrong today? Because, my god, a lot's gone wrong today. So, first off, I found out, 2 hours before the show started, that I was off on the start time of CES. I pretty much checked out of the tech world until, this morning. So I didn't know that CES started to happen just 2 days ago, on Thursday. So there was literally tons upon tons upon tons upon tons upon tons of stuff to go through. So, I went on, and if you saw my alert on Twitter, I ended up delaying the broadcast by an hour. Give me one more hour to just kind of mentally prep and just sit back, take in all the information, and try to come up with a plan. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that either, because roughly 20 minutes before broadcast time, the audio playback wasn't working, and more importantly, this guy, my new Yeti, was not working at all. That's actually why the audio quality sounds worse than normal. You're listening right now currently through the little line mic that the only reason that's ever been out or in use before was so that I could hear my own voice through these headphones. So that I wasn't shouting while my ears are covered like this. Yeah, you're hearing through that mic right now, which is infinitely worse than either the Yeti or the Snowball, which I can't figure out why OBS can't tell that the mic even exists. It has power. The power light's on. It's not muted. If it's muted, it would be flashing like this. It's solid. I don't get it. I really don't. So, we're just going to go through this. We started 9 minutes late, so we're going to go until 2:10. Maybe until 3:10 if we have too much to cover. But I got a feeling that anything I don't cover this week, I'm just going to cover next week. Because there is a lot to talk about. And a lot of it I don't even have all the details on, or anywhere near as much as I'd want to. First things first, I'm going to actually play a little bit of catch up. Because quite a bit of news actually came out on the Christmas week and the New Year's week. First things first. One real quick note, and I could do an entire topic about this, but I'm not going to because it really doesn't deserve it. last year we kind of finished up talking about one of the bigger stories in California. That was Uber insisting on breaking the law in California, which is very quickly just becoming classic Uber. Well, Christmas week on the 22nd, or was it the 21st? I can't remember. Uber stopped their blatant law breaking. To which I say, good. Because, come on, Uber. Come on. I still stand by my statement there. You weren't even trying to not break the law. So, that's that. Uber currently is not operating self-driving cars in California. It is unknown at this point if Uber plans on actually getting the licenses required to run self-driving cars in California. Considering that the law itself in California is nowhere near as restrictive as most laws in California, I can't imagine Uber wouldn't just say, okay, here's your whatever, $80, $100, $200, whatever the heck it is per license, here you go. And yeah, we'll hold ourselves responsible if one of our cars causes a terrible accident, like we would anyway. So, that's what I think about that. There, we've now covered it. We now spent a whole 2 minutes longer than I expected to on it. So, let's talk for a minute about where the Nintendo Switch stands now. There are... what's the right phrase? There's a lot of conflicting information. And here's what seems to be... right now, PC Per seems to have the most accurate information. Scrapping out what seems unrealistic, what does seem realistic. Because, like, some people were saying that, like, when docked, that it would be as powerful as, say, the PS4 or the Xbox One. And just considering the GPU it runs and the hardware that it has, that makes no sense. Because let's look at reality for a minute. Yes, the Xbox One and the PS4 are nowhere near as powerful as the top-tier gaming rigs. In fact, it's actually not that hard to actually build a gaming PC that is as powerful for just slightly more than what the two consoles cost. Actually, now a lot more. Actually, now it would be actually a lot more, because the PS4 and Xbox One, they're now sub 300, which is kind of surprising in price. Though PS4 and Scorpio, that's going to be a different story. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. You can still just as easily get a Pentium or a Celeron and shove a 1050 into that rig, and you've pretty much got what the Xbox One and PS4 has. The Switch, however, runs on a Tegra. The Tegra CPU is basically a tablet processor on steroids. Now, at this moment, you're probably thinking, how well an Android tablet games? And that's actually a bad comparison. Close, but still bad. Because while an Android tablet can game, you don't get the maximum amount of performance out of that tablet's hardware. That Android tablet is extremely restricted by the OS. we've talked about it time and time again, and every time I try to give Android a little bit of credit, those who know the guts better than I do keep reminding me, oh, come on, you know it's a titanic, colossal turd underneath the hood. And it is, but it is a colossal turd that does run. Now, your then next immediate assumption would be, I don't know if my audio actually cut out there or not. I'm gonna hope not, because unfortunately one of the downsides of these headphones is that if there's no sound pumping through them, they'll cut off to save power, and I don't know if that just cut my mic out or not. So, oh man, never have your main mic go out. That is just the worst. But anyway, as I was saying, the next closest comparison would be, say, the iPad. I'd hate to compare it to the iPad. Because, yeah, the operating system is more built towards the hardware, which is what the Switch is going to be. But at the same time, iOS it has a lot of very weird restrictions under the hood to make it accomplish what it wants to accomplish. But that's probably a closer comparison. However, here is one important detail that PC Per goes over. The gigaflops when in mobile and when docked are drastically different. When the Switch is docked, it lets the Tegra run at peak performance. This is something that not a lot of people are talking about. And those who are talking about it are stupid. Let's just put that out there. They're blatantly trying to exaggerate what it means. Let's first just go over what the gigaflops are. The gigaflops, in layman's terms, is basically how well the processor computes. I could go into what it actually stands for, but I don't have that kind of time. Nor is most of the people going to care. Just simply put, gigaflops is the performance level. When the Switch is mobile, it gets roughly 315 gigaflops. When docked, it gets 785. This is roughly a 250% performance increase, which is nice. I can appreciate that. This also means that the rumors about the Switch having only 3 hours of battery life most likely are wrong. Because to do that much of a performance drop, it doesn't mean that X1 is going to be performing anywhere close to peak performance. It's going to be, bare minimum. This also means that the games aren't going to be set to the highest settings. They're going to be dynamic and willing to drop frames at a moment's notice. So, what does 785 gigaflops mean? Let's compare it to the other consoles. We're not going to compare it to any PCs because, why bother? But comparing it to the Xbox One runs at 1,310 gigaflops, and the PlayStation 4 runs at 1,840 gigaflops. And of course, these are rough estimates. There's always various scenarios, depending on the game, depending blah, blah, blah. But that's roughly what they run at. So you look at these rough numbers, you're looking at a little more than half of an Xbox One performance-wise when docked. So it's time to start facing reality. The Nintendo Switch is not going to be a performance rig. But then again, if you expected the Switch to be a performance gaming console, you really were hoping for too much in the first place, like I've been saying for the past 3 months. I've had a feeling from the get-go that the whole goal of the Switch was to be the next entry and to kind of merge their failing Wii U home line into the slightly more successful DS line and breathe new life into the Nintendo franchises. That's what it looks like it's going to do. On top of that, Nintendo's going to be putting more of the focus on their own gimmicks, this time actually being a useful gimmick, unlike the Wii U, and their focus on content. Again, like Nintendo's been doing since the dawn of time. And when you look at the history, it makes sense. The only time Nintendo has been focused, and I mean focused, on performance was the N64. That's it. Now, maybe when the SNES first launched, you might argue that at that point their focus was power. Getting out of the 8-bit era and providing better graphics in a world where their games barely ran. Because let's be honest, that's where the NES pretty much was. Games barely ran. But they were still fun. And that's Nintendo's focus. And that's still Nintendo's focus. And that's going to be the focus of the Switch too. And I, for one, can't wait to get my hands on this. Not because it's going to be some groundbreaking powerhouse, but because it's going to be kind of neat having this thing plugged into my capture card, playing games online for you guys to see. And it's going, oh, well, I want to go grind. Then I can just take it with me on the go and just do whatever. So, that's going to conclude the roundup for the Switch. Alright? The Switch, at this point, is looking like it's going to be coming out about mid-March. And it's going to be roughly $249 US. However, I am still willing to bet it's going to be $299. Time will tell, though. Alright, so let's quickly talk about Kaby Lake. The Core i7 7700K, it's finally out. After 10,000 years of painful delays, Kaby Lake's out. And now people have their claws on it. And let's just be honest real quick. Unless you're running like Sandy Bridge or a second, third, or third gen processor, there's no reason to upgrade. There really isn't. I mean, honestly, at first when I saw CNET's headline saying that there was no improvements, I kind of had to glare at the headline just because CNET's been ticking me off lately with their terrible reporting. Just awful. But After looking at other trusted sources, yeah. On average, it looks like about a 2% performance increase. If that. So, if you're on Skylake, there is literally no reason for you to upgrade to Kaby Lake. There's a few minor improvements, a little bit more in power optimization, but there's no real... There is no real big performance increase or feature introduction or anything of the nature. There's nothing here. So, that being said, we can just move on and say that Cannon Lake is probably going to be dropping before the end of the year. Now, and actually to answer the question in the chat, there are like two things that I already forgot the name of it. It's that unimportant. That Kaby Lake did introduce. Kaby Lake does have 2 more PCI Express lanes than Skylake. And the generation before Sandy Bridge was Linfield, which was based on the Nehalem architecture. If you're still on Nehalem or Linfield, like I'm on Nehalem right now on this rig, you'll see a performance increase. Whether it's going to be a performance increase that matters, that's the real question. Because, I mean, I come close to maxing out just about every game, and the only times I struggle is because my graphic card's only a GTX 780. And some of the more modern games on maximum settings push that card to its limit. But that's about it. But in any case, let's focus back on Cannon Lake. Cannon Lake is another talk in the Skylake architecture. It's another refresh from Skylake. And considering the fact that Kaby Lake, which was another processor release, pretty much did nothing, I don't know how much Cannon Lake is going to actually provide. But we found out at CES that Cannon Lake's going to drop before the end of the year. We'll see. And we'll see if it really matters when push comes to shove. Now, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I'm going to try and get through as much of the CES gear as I've got before we run out of time. I'll be right back. Hey everyone, Eagle Falcon here. I just wanted to talk for a minute about everything that's actually happened since we started. Now, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I did miss Eagle Eyes on Tech's anniversary. I know. I feel bad too. But it's not only the fact that I missed the anniversary on October 20th, which I'm now saying now so I don't forget for next time, but it's also I'm actually closing in on my other hobbies and anniversary. If you don't know, I stream on Twitch, and if you actually do enjoy my content here on Eagle Eyes on Tech, you really should check me out on twitch.tv/eagle_falcon. Where every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday we go through and just play games, have fun, play along with some Jackbox games on some days,
go through campaigns and just kind of laugh along, crack jokes, and it's just a great, grand old time. So be sure to check me out there, and we will be getting back to some actual serious tech news very, very soon. Like right now.
Welcome back! Eagle Eyes on Tech, now with Crappy Mike. And I'm Eagle Falcon. Yeah, that was actually kind of one we were talking about with the chat during the obligatory break, where I go and take a large chug of water. about AMD. I actually couldn't find much about AMD's hopes. Now, I did find a lot of releases about various motherboards and their new chipset, which is, I think, very intentionally confusingly named. But, oh wait, no. I take that back. I did find an article about their future GPU architecture. I think I just lied altogether. To which then I apologize. I literally tried to just scramble through as much of this together. In case you missed it earlier, this was a real scramble to the finish, and finding out that my primary mic decided not to work, not helpful. So, in any case, I want to talk for a moment about Dell's little... I don't know what to call this. Surface Studio competitor? So what it is, it's an all-in-one that bends down, and it has a turn dial, much like the Surface Studio, and a stylus, but unlike the Surface Studio, it has a large LCD placemat that goes in front of it that also works as a second screen for it and works with the computer. So, sorry about that. It's basically almost exactly like the Surface Studio, except for good front-facing speakers. And then they add another screen in front of it. Now, once again, this kinda... There's a few things I'd like to point out. One, the article here from PCPer does say there is a noticeable half-second lag between when you make a pen stroke and when it shows up on the screen. This is unlike the technology that the Surface uses. In addition, I mean, it's actually closer to... If you've ever tried the iPad Pro and the iPencil or iStyle, whatever the heck they call it, I don't care. Nobody cares about Apple and their pencil. If you ever tried that, I'd imagine the delay is similar to that. Like, I could notice the delay in that. Now, if you can tolerate that lag, though, the Dell Cammons is launching March 30th for $1,800. I would need to see the specs to see how it compares to the Studio, but that is, right off the bat, cheaper than the Studio. So that could be very, Very interesting. Oh, actually, this thing apparently got an innovation award. Hold up here. When I was doing the research earlier, nobody said that the CES awards were out yet. We may have to go into a second hour, because I am going to have to rip into the awards. We actually do have some sudden news that was just brought to me from Unjust Bandit in the chat. Apparently, Time Warner Cable, now Spectrum, is apparently doing network upgrades for the 17th. And that the internet tiers will upgrade. Apparently here in our area, the program I have here, the 30 down goes to 60 down, but 5 up remains as 5 up. That could be interesting. I mean, really, in the grand scheme of things, for what I do, that doesn't change much. But it's still kind of neat. For wherever you are in your area, do check, because those speeds are, of course, going to be drastically different compared to where I am in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin. That being said, let's move on. So, in any case, new motherboards already now starting to come out for the new Kaby Lake processors. EVGA has launched theirs. There's not much of a surprise here. The only real surprises here is that their higher end motherboards are only featuring 3 graphic card slots instead of 4. Which is, it's actually pretty nice. And the reason I actually say it's nice is because, remember earlier how I said that, or what was it? It was 3 weeks ago, that the MacBook Pro ended up requiring more lanes than it had to give. Here, EVGA is instead spacing out their PCI Express slots. Because in the grand scheme of things, you're only going to be able to power 2 graphic cards at full capacity. And with the spacing out they're doing, there's going to be easily enough room for those graphic cards to suck in air and breathe properly. Now that being said, there is one little itty-bitty little motherboard that catches my eye, and that's the Z270 Stinger from EVGA. I shouldn't say full-size, a mini ITX motherboard with full 16X graphic card slot, 2 RAM slots, and the full plethora of ports. These boards aren't uncommon. Pretty much everyone makes a high-end mini ITX board. But the nice thing here is that there is no restriction on the MOSFETs, and there is no restriction on overclocking. Usually these things have limiters put on them. The Stinger does not. So, if you're going to a LAN party and you want to try and build like a small console-sized rig that's going to blow away anyone else that tries to go up against it for performance-wise, this is the board to go for. Hands down. Alright. We're very quickly starting to run out of time, so I'm actually going to start being picky as far as what we're going to get to. And I want to get to this. So I want you to come with me on a trip back in time. Long ago, back in the Intel, I believe it would be the Woodcrest era. Or is it Yorkfield? I can't remember which. Lenovo had just bought out IBM. So it was no longer the IBM ThinkPads. It was the Lenovo ThinkPads. And this was just as the numbering systems were changed. Gone were the days of the T61 and the T61Es. And so began the T400s, the T500s, and the higher end ThinkPads getting the letter W for the workstation era. Shortly after these numbers were announced, Lenovo released a laptop called the W700DS. This is a fascinating laptop because not one of its kind has ever been made since. It is a 17-inch mobile workstation laptop with a full 60-watt graphic card underneath the hood, in addition to quad-core Core 2 Quad processor, up to 2.53 gigahertz per core, which for a laptop is still pretty good even by this standards. It had both a trackpad and a stylus-based tablet, a Wacom-style tablet built into the palm rest. Keyboard and numerical keypad. And unfortunately, it didn't have a backlit keyboard. That was the one thing it was missing. It did, however, have a little light built into the screen to shine down on the keyboard for working at night. But that's not what made this laptop unique. The thing that made it unique was the fact that its 17.3-inch screen was abnormally thicker than other laptop screens. This was because if you pulled from the right side, a 10-inch screen would slide out. There was a second screen built into this laptop. It was the first and last time Lenovo ever did this. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of wish that other manufacturers went and did that design. And I couldn't even tell you who would be the next manufacturer to try such an absurd idea. Well, I suppose in hindsight, I really should have called that Razer would be the next one to try something so absurd. Because sure enough, Razer did it. CES 2017, Razer unveils the Razer Project Valerie. Not one, not two, but three 17.3-inch displays. Each display being way too high. All three are 4K resolution. Which is amazing, but at the same time, that little GPU is going to cry. It's going to cry so hard. Now, making fun of how much that GPU is going to cry aside, this thing is amazing. Just one laptop is probably going to weigh. Oh, actually, the current design is a 1.5-inch thick unibody aluminum chassis or chassis, I'm sorry, with a weight of under 12 pounds. So just over 12 pounds. Come on, when was the last time anyone who said under X number of pounds? It's usually like a hair above that number. The notebook will be equipped with an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 GPU. I'd imagine the processor is going to be a Core i7. But my god, you look at this... Oh my god, this thing is... It looks so thick. It looks as thick as my current Alienware 18. And that thing, of course, only houses one screen and 2 graphic cards. I want to play with this laptop so bad. And I don't know what this system is going to cost, but it's going to be more than whatever I have in my pocket. That much is for sure. Oh yeah, and of course, it's going to be equipped with all of the... It's equipped with all of the lights. Trackpad lights up. There's lights under the screens to kind of make the area around the thing. It's just... It's a gaming laptop. It's what you expect. So let's actually talk about AMD Vega GPU. Now, before we get into this, I want to just express my disappointment about Polaris. Polaris, it turned out, was an incredibly disappointing GPU. It was a step forward, but in the end, AMD just didn't have it compete at all with NVIDIA. So Vega here is supposed to be, underlined, supposed to be, the focus for enthusiast graphic cards. This is supposed to be the card to compete with the 1070s and the 1080s. And inevitably the 1080 Ti and the 1090. That's great and all. But AMD said the same thing about Fiji. And about Polaris. So on one hand, I hope that AMD does the best with Vega. On the other hand, I have some serious doubts about whether Vega's actually going to fulfill on its promises. And granted, it doesn't have that many promises. Be better. Overtake NVIDIA. Lord knows what the advantages that AMD has with HBM. This shouldn't be a problem. And yet here we are. Talking about how last year AMD didn't even try. And when push came to shove, all it took was NVIDIA's mainstream card, their 1060, to beat AMD's best. That's all it took. And this has just left all the AMD fanboys either in absolute disappointment or in absolute denial. And either way, that's not healthy. And this is coming from the guy who's using both NVIDIA and Intel currently. If I'm going to build a rig, it's going to be with Intel and NVIDIA right now. And that's not because I'm a fan of those two. It's because currently those are the correct choices. AMD simply has no place in the current builder's utility kit. The 480 isn't better at anything, except at being slightly cheaper than the 1060. But even then, pop in a 1060 and you win. Actually, no, I take that back. AMD does excel at multi-GPU, because NVIDIA gave up on that market. And the main reason NVIDIA gave up on it is because multi-GPUs doesn't work for VR. If you're going for VR, you go for NVIDIA. In fact, right now, the only ones that are touching AMD at all is Apple. That's it. We're going to go into a second hour here. We're going to be right back. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the various releases, the this and the that's, and if I can get my hands on what the CES awards were, we're going to talk about that too. Because Lord knows, the CES awards this year can't be any worse than they were last year. Right? We're right back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Go to Ready. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. And I am Eagle Falcon, back with a second hour of Eagle Eyes on Tech. CES Day, and I still can't help but feel I am missing a metric ton. You just can't help but ever shake that feeling. So, let's first talk about some of the stuff that I had to overlook previously to get to the good stuff. First off, let's talk about what's even more of an overkill. Now, one thing I will argue forever is that 4K only makes sense in TV and screen resolution when the screen is beyond 50 inches. It is only at that point that your pixel density is lost to the point that it actually matters. And I keep bringing this up because Apple actually made a good point way back when the iPhone 4 launched. Apple launched what they called the Retina display. It was when the pixel density was so packed that your eyes couldn't even tell the difference on the pixels. And granted, it is the worst kind of buzzwording. Literally the worst. It really, really is. Just because now everyone's going to go, oh, it's a Retina display. Oh, it's a Retina display. Oh, my God. And granted, you could get crisper and it could look better. But it was so close that it barely made a difference. And then everyone just tried getting more and more and more and more and more pixels. To which everyone just had to go, why? If the pixels are already so small that you can't tell the difference between what's on the screen made up of dots and raw ink, what's the point? And that's kind of where I came down on 4K monitors. "17 inches at 4K, your eyes can't tell the difference." So here we have Dell with the ultra sharp 32 Ultra HD. To which I have to ask the same question. Why? Now, you might be thinking, oh, come on, Eagle, it's 32 inches. That's enough for 4K. It's not 4K. It is 8K. "8K" means that your graphic card is now working 4 times harder to produce this 8K image than it did a 4K image. In fact, actually more, it'd be closer to... Wait a minute. No, it'd be closer to 16 times harder to produce that 8K image than it would a 4K image. And right now, you need top of the line to produce a 4K image flawlessly. Okay, well, to make the image itself is not that hard. But to make video of it, or to play a game of it, is extremely stressful on the hardware. It is why every time I see a gaming laptop trying to boast about its incredibly stupid high resolution, I just go, oh, fantastic. I can't wait to see that 1060 cry trying to do that. Even the 1080 on Razer's tri-screen laptop is going to struggle a bit. You're more than likely going to be scaling that down to 1080p on each monitor. But of course, no one is worse at this than Apple themselves, pumping in an integrated Intel card, the lowest of the low, into a professional-grade laptop, trying to put 4K on a 15-inch screen. And they call themselves a performance laptop. It's these kinds of actions that really just blow my mind. Now, granted, you can hook up this monitor to anything you want. But if you expect to take advantage of all of those pixels, you better have one super serious rig to handle it. I want to talk for a moment about this thing. Actually, before I go, let's I want to answer a question in the chat. Chat asks, is 1440p an improvement over 1080p for a monitor? Yes and no. 1440 is halfway to 4K. But one thing to keep in mind, as I said, the higher the resolution you're trying to do anything at, the harder your hardware has to work to do it. If you're okay with a 1080p image, then by all means, stick with the 1080p image. The other thing to kind of pay attention to is the color accuracy of the monitor. That Dell one I just referred to, the 8K one, did have Adobe RGB certified color accuracy. So if you're going to go for a 1440 and it has like the color accuracy of a grayscale TV, not the best idea. So you want to try and look at that sort of info. But if your computer's already struggling just to do 1080p, then definitely don't go for the 1440. Work on upgrading the rig first. So back to this. Chat wants me to suggest refresh rates. It's all a tough call, really. As far as refresh rates, everyone has their own opinion, and it's all just whatever the rig can handle. Again, I would focus more on upgrading a rig rather than upgrading monitors. Anyway, enough chat distractions. Let's get to these mice. So, one thing that I never thought would catch on was a mouse made by Razer called the Naga. If you're looking at me confused like you don't know what the heck the Razer Naga is, trust me, you've seen this mouse. You may not know you've seen the Naga, but you've seen the Naga. The Naga is a very fat mouse. And on the left-hand side of the mouse, it has a numerical pad, numbers 1 through 12. Yeah, okay, see? Your face just lit up. You've seen this thing. You can't say you haven't. And this is a thing that, if you have fat fingers like me, like, there's no way I could use the Naga properly. My thumb is just too fat. There's no way I could hit those buttons accurately. Some people like it, some people are indifferent about it, but most people have strong opinions about it, and most of them are negative. Such as, for the love of God, just give me like 1 or 2 buttons on the side, I don't need 12, etc., etc. So, it comes as a complete surprise to me that Corsair copied the Naga. Corsair launches the Scimitar Pro RGB gaming mouse. Do I have to say anything else? you know exactly what this mouse is. It's a mouse by Corsair. It's got 12 buttons on the side. RGB's in the name, so you know there's customized lights all over the thing. The end. What else can you say? I mean, just the build-up to this thing. I've said everything there is to say about this thing. I personally dislike these mice. I really do, just because it's too many buttons in a compact area. The worst thing you could do in any sort of game that you're trying to be competitive at, which is what these things are marketed at. They're marketed at the quote-unquote pro gamer. The guys who will do anything to win. Anything at all costs. It would be the worst thing in the world to say, if you're Mei in Overwatch, to plop up that ice wall instead of ice blocking. Ice blocking means you live. Ice wall more than likely means you've hindered your allies and now you're dead because you needed to ice block. That's just the first example that comes to my mind. I'm sure someone who is an expert at MOBAs could come up with a situation that is a lot more detrimental. Now, I'm going to hope and pray that this is the last time I see mice with numerical pads on the side. But I kind of doubt it. There's one thing I'm noticing that is coming back to life, and it is springing to life. Everyone is coming up with Thunderbolt 3 external graphic card systems. Now, if you want to talk about a solution for how to have your 4K laptop power that 4K monitor properly, this is the way to go. I mean, it is just as it sounds. Just like with the Razer equivalent, the Alienware equivalent, you plug in a full desktop size graphic card in there, you hook up your power ends, and then you hook up the Thunderbolt 3 cable or proprietary cable, whichever it may be, to the laptop, and the laptop uses the external graphic card rather than its internal. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be an improvement increase. The only exception to this right now is if your laptop has a GTX 1080 in it. It's kind of surprising to me that these things are becoming more and more popular, as internal laptop graphic cards are almost now identical to their desktop counterparts. The mobile 1080 performs nearly identical to the desktop 1080. Really, there's only one thing these things excel at, and that is actually extending the life of the gaming laptop. Because, I mean, let's be real honest. Suppose you go and get your comically oversized and overpowered triple screen Razer laptop. First off, you bask in the glow of your triple screens on a laptop, and then realize you are living in the future, while everyone thinks you're living in the past. Now, 4 years down the road, you are painfully out of date. Unless you have an external graphic card. Easily pop in your GTX 1480 or whatever, and you're back off to the races. Your CPU will still be out of date, but let's be honest. There hasn't been a whole lot of CPU improvements over the years. We just talked about that earlier, how Kaby Lake is almost a non-improvement over Skylake in every way, shape, and form. And even those running the Halem and Sandy Bridge are still pretty close to being as powerful as Skylake is. I mean, within 33%, but still, more than enough. So on one hand, the external graphic card systems are completely and utterly pointless right here and right now. They can drastically extend the life of a gaming laptop down the road. Which also just makes it kind of surprising that then these same PC manufacturers wonder why nobody's buying new PCs. I want you to remember that the next time that any sort of Wall Street investor claims that PCs are dead, the PC sales are going further and further and further down, it's because everyone's making their 4-year-old and 5-year-old and 6-year-old desktops and laptops last that much longer. Remember that, because I guarantee you that's going to be brought up again over and over and over again this year. Someone in the chat asks, if you have enough money to buy that Razer laptop, why not just buy the new one that comes out in the next 4 years? Think about it this way. Let's pretend for a moment, and granted, this is a lot of pretending we're going to be doing right now. Let's pretend I had the $3,000 or whatever the heck the Project Valerie costs. Let's just pretend it's $3,000. Which is probably not too far from the truth. Let's say I save up, I go get this laptop. I've now got the top tier Core i7 and I've got an internal 1080. 4 years down the road, I want to play Overwatch 3. Or Crisis 28. Or whatever. I want to play the new hotness and the 1080 can't keep up anymore. What am I going to do? Spend another $3 or $4K on a new laptop? Or spend $800 on an external GPU and extend the life of that $3,000 investment? Especially when you're talking about a world where CPUs just insist on only being 2% faster every year. Unless somehow AMD decides to actually be competitive. That's my point. Alright, the chat's retort is 800 will still add up. The thing is, though, is that you spend 800, you're now running a Core i7, and you're running a 1480, a GTX 1480. Clearly, chat is not getting the point. Okay, so You're not talking about spending $800 every year for this external graphic card. you're first talking... The reason I come up with 800 is because these external graphic card units, just the external unit itself with no card in it, is usually 200 to 300. Okay? I'm going to go high end, say it's 300. Alright? You then got to get the graphic card. You get your 1480. You assume that's going to be 500. Maybe it'll be 600. You're now running the top tier 1480. You're talking about a card you're not going to have to upgrade for several years. When you're talking about that time, you'd either you'd do this one-time upgrade, and then down the road, say 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you go, okay, well, this 1480 isn't cutting the mustard anymore. At that point, you can decide, now does it make sense to get another gaming card? Or as CPU technology is still not advanced enough, and you can still just pop in another $500 card. You're talking close to 5.5K over 8 years if you're talking 2 GPU upgrades, versus $12,000 if you went and got a new gaming laptop each time. That's my point. Before, like for example, my Alienware 18, my Alienware MX18, its graphic cards cannot game anymore. They are grossly outdated. In order to game on that thing again, I would be looking at either A, spending, I think it was like $600 for replacing the internal graphic card, or saving up and getting a new machine. In the case of the external graphic cards, you can get the top of the line. Alright, chat's now counterpoint is, then your number one point is to stay away from laptops. The thing is that with these graphic card expanders, you have the best of both worlds. Yeah, it's less portable now because you have this external block that you have to carry around. But it's still desktop level upgradability and a platform that couldn't get it before. Now, if you were the kind like me who focuses on upgrading over and over and over again, by all means, go for a desktop. What are you doing? But it is an option that didn't exist before for laptops. It is a platform that in the past would be one that every time it's no longer capable, you'd throw it out. And my key point was that now you can limp it on longer. You can get more life out of it. And I guarantee you, all of the post-PC freaks out there, they're going, the desktop's dead, the laptop's dead, everything running Windows is dead, long live the tablet, everyone's going to be using their phones, blah, 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 is going to be looking at the fact that everyone's extending the life of their computers more because of technology like this, and refusing to look at technology like this. Instead, assuming we're all switching to tablets. With that, I'm going to finally move on. We're going to move on away from that, too. Although, speaking of... it's kind of funny we go to this one next. So here's an announcement that came out at CES. How many of you even remember GeForce Now? Because I'll be real honest, I completely forgot GeForce Now existed. Around the time that the GTX 750 and 750 Ti came out, NVIDIA revealed it was working on a massive cloud gaming system called GeForce Now. The sole purpose of GeForce Now was to be able to do PC gaming quality gaming on smaller devices like the NVIDIA Shield, both the tablet and the PSP clone that went nowhere. For a monthly fee, you could play PC games on those sort of platforms whenever you wanted. The only problem was that you'd have to deal with the delay. Now, I'll be real honest, I have never used GeForce Now. I have, however, used Valve's in-house streaming service as an experiment. I had my main rig here try to stream first-person shooter games to a little Core 2 Duo laptop that had no business running that caliber of game. It was unplayable. The input lag was horrendous, and this was over the LAN. Now, actually, horrendous is the wrong word. It was bad, though. It was like a fractional second of a delay anytime you do anything. And maybe you could get away with, like, say, playing Junkrat and still doing relatively well. But if you were trying to do sniping or anything where every split second mattered, no, there's no way. There's just no way. On top of that, the connection interruptions were bad. And this was over the LAN, where I had fiber-like speeds. So, I already have a low opinion of this sort of service to begin with. NVIDIA announces that GeForce Go is now available for PCs. I'm not gonna lie. I tried long and hard to figure out what the target market is for this. The only answer I have is anyone running Mac. Primarily because Apple insists on having no GPU power to their Macintoshes. But that's it. I mean, think about it for a minute. Let's say for a second that... Look, the only computer I can think of right now that I have... One second here. One sec. The only computer I can think of right now that I have that would benefit from this is this guy right here. I am holding up a Dell Latitude E6230? I think it's 6230. Yeah, 6230. Ivy Bridge-based Core i5. No real respectable gaming qualities whatsoever other than the fact decent processor. Okay? This thing would run Hearthstone and that's about it. I could have it connect to GeForce Now and then experience the wonderful suffering of input lag. here's the bottom line. If you're even considering going with GeForce Now for even a second, I want you to think about this. Go on to eBay. Look up any Dell Optiplex or HP Compact Pro for under $200 that runs at least a Core i5. That $200 PC, you can then take a GTX 1050 or 1050 Ti for between $120 to $150. And for $350, you have an Xbox One grade gaming PC. Like that. It didn't take much effort, did it? So what makes more sense? Paying a monthly fee of whatever the heck this is. I don't care. Unless it's $2, it makes no sense. Oh my god. $25 for 20 hours of usage. $25 for 20 hours of usage. Ow. Just save yourself the money. And I encourage you, if this still sounds like a good idea to you, get in touch with me, eaglefalcontech@gmail.com. I can find a million better ways to get you PC gaming ready that will come up much better for you in the long term than this, even in the short term. $25 for 20 hours of usage? It's like a week if you stretch it out. 4 hours, yeah, about a week. I'd say that's pretty accurate. Alright, we're closing to the end of the second hour. I'm not even going to bother going to a second break. Let's go over the awards. So this year, The Verge did the CES Awards. And already I have problems. First up is the Gamer's Best Friend Award, the Logitech G533 headset. That's just, it's not good. So let's talk for a minute about what makes a good headset. First, I'm going to go over the ones I'm using. I'm using the Razer, what is that, the Kraken? I forget which one this is. Wrong side. Hold on. I'm using the Razer Manowar wireless headset. Now, I do dislike the way that Razer did this design up here. Fell apart very quickly, but while this held sturdy, provided nice tension to the top of the head, still gave it room to breathe, and with this massive cushioning right here, using the material they used, it means that no matter how much I sweat in the summer, it's not gonna get into the felt, and it's not gonna make it gross. It's just gonna slide off like nobody's business. First off, the shape of the ears, it's squared, which already just sits awkwardly around your ears. On top of that, you can tell from the picture alone, it's got a rough felt texture to it. Like a canvas almost. I can just not imagine how that's going to feel around the ears and on the top of the head. Just looking at this thing just kind of makes me cringe. And then to top it all off, to say it's gamer's best friend? What? The $800 Dell laptop that was respectable didn't catch your eye? Razer's crazy over-the-top 3 triple screen gaming laptop didn't catch your eye? The various tweaked out keyboards and mice that were there didn't catch your eye? No, it had to be this lame freaking $50 at most headset. On top of that, we're talking about a gamer's market where more and more gamers are going into streaming. They're not going to be using this inline headset. The only time this mic's going to come in use is so that they can hear themselves talk through their own ear like I can right now. Most gamers now are looking at stuff like this. But hey, what do I know? Most hyped. Most hyped. This is an award. I'm not even going to get to the point where it says the first toothbrush with artificial intelligence, which in fact might be the stupidest sentence I have ever uttered in my life. I mean, my God. Toothbrush with artificial intelligence. I'm going to ignore that for a minute, because that sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life. I know I just said that, but I just can't get over the fact it says toothbrush with artificial. What kind of award is most hyped? And how is this the most hyped? This is the first time I've ever heard of this thing. Toothbrush. A toothbrush. Best danger. This is also an award. Okay. Okay. Why? Why is this a thing? Why is this an award? Who is the idiot who came up with these awards? This is quite possibly the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And this is just after talking about a toothbrush with artificial intelligence. The Draco drone. While drone racing has been growing in popularity, to get into the sport, you had to build your own aircraft. That meant learning how to program and solder. That changed at CES with the introduction of UVifi's Draco drone, which can go up to 100 miles per hour out of the box. It costs $499, and its modular design makes it easy to repair after a crash, because believe me, you will crash. A lot. That first introductory paragraph comes from The Verge. I'm moving on because this hurts. Best VR. Okay, here we go. An actual real category. None of this fake categories like the last ones were. Most hyped. Mentioned something that nobody talked about. Oh my god. Oh boy. Alright, so. Their best VR is the HTC TP Cast. The article reads, I think the HTC Vive is the best VR system available, but I think the heavy cable is the worst thing about it. The new TP Cast peripherals removes that downside. How can you not win best VR? I wasn't expecting a wireless solution to come along for years. I'll interject. Not gonna lie, I didn't either. In fact, I'm actually going to stop reading there because the rest of it's just nothing. This actually is rather fascinating. It looks pretty close to what the Vive is now. Which now makes me wonder if this picture which says Vive on the side actually is the TP Cast or not. If it is, that's fantastic, and I'm actually very curious as to the details of this headset, how it connects wirelessly, what's the delay, how much is lost, if anything. This is actually kind of fascinating, and I can't wait to see this hopefully exist and not be vaporware. So with that, let's move on. Best Pixels. Best Pixels. Oh boy. Well, that's how you disappoint me right there. You make a category called Best Pixels. Not the worst category, but there it is. The Dell 8K monitor won it, by the way. I mean, I already talked about it, I already ranted about it. So we can move on. 32 inches, 8K monitor. Stress your PC more than you need to, but it's best pixels. Next award, hot garbage. Okay, Verge. Okay, Verge. What the hell? What the actual heck? Do you know where smart trash cans were previously in the years of CES? They existed, but they fell under the category of weird things at CES. You know, kind of where drones were 4 years ago. Anyway, the winner of the Hot Garbage Award is the Simple Human Trash Can. A product that I think Verge made up this award for just to give an award because the editor's daughter or someone was just impressed by it. What on earth? I don't even want to read the article. I mean, I'm skimming over it. It's Wi-Fi enabled trash cans that are voice activated somehow, and you've already lost me. Why? Why is this a thing? Best swag. Best swag. We are now giving awards to the freebies given out at the convention. Best swag, Intel's barf bags. What's not to love about Intel handing out paper bags for its virtual reality-focused CES keynote? There's a self-aware joke about VR's greatest danger, motion sickness. There's the grace of offering basically worthless swag that we journalists won't have to worry about either politely rejecting or trying to give it away. So not only is this a yet another award that has no business even existing, but it is swag that should not even be applauded. This is the equivalent of a quick joke given out at 4chan. And that's it. A quick little throwaway line given in, say, a Twitch chat, or at a 4chan thread, or in YouTube comments, or on Reddit. Hey, look, we should give out barf bags for our VR keynote. Hurdy-durdy-durdy-dur. Come on! This is CES, the biggest electronics show in the world. The future of technology is showcased here. And you award a paper bag? What is wrong with you, Verge? Best acceleration. Am I actually reading the real CES awards? Oh, well, could someone please tell me that I'm reading a gag? This is all a joke, right? Yeah, that would actually be the best news. I don't even care. I'm not even going to read it. Best Chromebook. There is no best Chromebook. Moving on. Best Writable. The Irby. A $1,700 pedal scooter with a generator. Next. Oh my god. Best Ugly. First off, Best Ugly. That's actually not the part that annoys me the most about this one. It was given to the Samsung Odyssey. Samsung's attempt at a gaming laptop, and I gotta give Samsung some credit here. They took some interesting risks, and it looks decent. I think it looks nice. And that's probably the part that annoys me the most. The same outfit that awarded Best Rideable to the ugliest, stupid bike I've ever seen in my life. This little fold-up bike that looks like a V with two of the frickin' wheels that we use at work for carts. That if I ever saw anyone riding this thing, I'd feel the urge to run up to them and kick them in the face because they deserve it for being so stupid. To then call this thing the first decent looking thing the best ugly thing they found? Go to hell, Verge. Best millennial I already hate you. Best millennial transport. You ever heard about millennials? Chrysler sure has, and those millennials are about to start having lots of millennial babies. God. You start wanting a minivan, but to satisfy this new child-rearing millennial, Chrysler's developed the Portal, an internet-connected, social-integrated Wi-Fi-enabled elevator door having millennial box on wheels. What the heck is wrong with these people? You want to get into millennial stereotypes? Let's actually start getting into millennial stereotypes. There is no millennial that is ever, in the history of ever, going to be caught dead in this thing. None. Because there are two kinds of millennials. There are the ones that enforce every single negative stereotype of millennials, and they'll be caught dead on a bike before they're caught driving their own vehicle, or they're going to be in a frickin' ride-sharing, self-driving taxi. The other kind are the kind like me, who go out, bust their rear end, and enjoy actually having their own beater and driving it. I would be the kind of millennial that's more likely to be seen in this sort of thing, and this is the fuggliest thing I've ever seen. And this is coming from the guy who goes out of his way at every single chance he has to talk about the boxy crossover that is the Ford Flex. I give that vehicle so much crap, but I'll tell you what. I will buy a Ford Flex before this colossal mouse-shaped piece of garbage. I dropped my mic, but it's connected to a spring arm and doesn't work today. That being said, let's move on. Best Echo. Oh boy. Where do I start with all the problems for this? You know what the beauty of this right here? I didn't even have a chance to read all of these. This is the first reaction I'm getting for every single one of these things. So, the award for Best Echo. You know what my problem is right off the bat? When you name an award, you go out of your way to have the award be as generic as possible. Whether it be Best Smartphone. You call it the best smartphone. You don't call it the best iPhone. Or you call it the best gaming capture card. Not the best Razer Ripsaw. You call it the best monitor. Not the best Dell UltraSharp. So right off the bat saying Best Echo. What, is Amazon sponsoring you? Are you giving out awards, or are you just coming up with lazy excuses for writing articles? Alright, so this boring looking cylinder pretty much has all the various same features as the Echo, a little bit more, and all for the same price as the Echo for $180. And doesn't talk about its accuracy or how well it works as a voice-activated digital assistant, which is what the product is called, I might add. But then I love the part where it says it's all for $180, which is the same price as the Echo. It's your move, Amazon. Amazon still has to answer for the Google Home, which is currently top dog. And even then, if you're just going to compare it to the Lenovo Smart Assistant, Amazon already has an answer for that. It's called the Echo Dot. Oh my god. Next up, the best 4-in-1. The Samsung Flex Wash and Flex Dry. Okay. So, let me tell you a little bit about where I come from before I start tearing into this thing. For those of you who don't know, obviously I do a tech podcast. I'm doing it now. I also do Twitch streaming part-time. When I'm not doing that, I am a manager for a commercial laundry and dry cleaning plant. I know quite a lot about laundry, how to deal with laundry, how to handle laundry, etc., etc., etc. So, first off, before I lay into these devices, do you know what 4-in-1 used to mean in the tech world? Printer, scanner, copier, fax. That was a 4-in-1. So already your award name is crap. Plain, simple crap. Second, the features this thing has. One's a washer, the other's a dryer. The dryer has a chamber on top for quick drying, and the washer has a soak tub on the top. So, let's rant. Do you know what we use in our commercial plant for soaking? No? Here's a hint. It's the same tool you have at home. It's called a bucket. You put it in your sink, you put your pre-spot chemicals in it, you put water in it, and you put your garment in there. Your pre-spot chemicals are going to depend on whatever the garment is. For most of you out there, it's going to be Shout. If it's say white socks that have gotten a bit dirtier, you're going to use bleach. And you're going to let it sit there. It's what us pros use too. Why is it deemed that a washer needs to have the same feature as a $3 bucket? And then the dryer. Oh, the dryer. It has a chamber on the top for a quick blow dry. Do you know what also does that? Line drying. Hanging your linen out to dry. This isn't the best at anything. It right off the bat has features nobody uses at all. Not even those of us in the business who have experience dealing with every single possible sort of scenario we can get from laundry, dry cleaning, etc., etc., etc. But no. You've given me a washer-dryer that includes features that don't matter. Oh, but why is it considered the best on a tech blog? Oh, because it's connected to Wi-Fi. That makes everything better all of a sudden. Oh my god. Oh my god. So, I can't believe we're actually going on this long. But I'll be flexible. I'm going to take a third hour here. We're going to be right back. We're going to finish these awards. And if I got time left, I'm going to tackle a few other things. We're going to be right back. Hour 3 of what was supposed to be a 1 hour show. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. I'm sorry this is going on for so long, but there is just so much to talk about. And I just had to take the time. Because these awards are just atrocious, and I am seriously hoping that I'm just going to find out that these aren't the real awards and this is just Verge's attempt to get attention. But let's move on anyway. We have a real category now. We have Best Projector. The LG ProBeam. The article reads, projectors have always been the also-rans at CES, a show dominated by giant glowing rectangles, but for many, the phone has become the TV, and TV is the relic of an old viewing model. Is it just me or that make no sense? But for many, the phone has become the TV, and TV's the relic of an old... Somebody doesn't know how to English. Anyway. There's no apostrophe there, by the way. It's just TVS. Anyway. It'll be bright, portable projectors like the WebOS-powered ProBeam HF80J from LG that provide the occasional big screen escape to a new generation of viewers. Okay, hold on here. Wait a minute, hold up. WebOS powered? WebOS is still around? When did this happen? When did WebOS begin existing again? I mean, my God. WebOS, for those who don't know, that was the operating system that powered Palm's smartphones. It used a deck of cards sort of layout, very similar to actually how iOS runs now in the multitask mode. To the point where you'd swipe up from the bottom to open a new application, and then you'd take the card and then swipe all the way up to close the application, or swipe down to minimize it. How is that powering a projector? And first off, this author, who didn't pass 3rd grade English, I might add, seems to be implying that TVs are dying off. Do you know what I hear the most when streaming on Twitch? That people use their Chromecast to watch me on their TV! The problem right now is that the projector just... it's becoming nowhere as power efficient as the TV. And there's always going to be a market for TV. Or not for TVs, for projectors. There's always going to be those that want to be able to do presentations on a much bigger screen. Or those like my stepfather, who do everything in their power to try and make a home theater system. And that's where the projector is going to live. This guy seems to be implying that I'm going to set up my own projector here in my room. No. God, no. Just, no. Best laptop. Again, an actual real award. I'm so excited. The Dell XPS 13 convertible. So let me get this straight. The category is best laptop. And a 13-inch thin and light laptop that has a feature that is now 3 years old is your winner. Man, if only there was some sort of laptop that was better, or more ingenious, or provided more features, or was some sort of crazy 17-inch unfoldable laptop that had 3 screens. Seriously? You went through all of the best that CES had to offer, and you picked the most generic, lamest, cut and dry laptop you possibly could as the best? If I was in any management position of The Verge, every single person that I sent to CES would be out of a job. Case in point, this next award, most touching. Now, in all fairness, the winner of this award actually is pretty interesting. The Tanvis touchscreen. This touchscreen actually does change the sensations that you feel on the screen itself. So that if you were rubbing it against felt, it would actually feel like felt. It wouldn't change at all in that regard. Or that it would change that sort of sensation. And that is actually really cool. But again, these award names are just god awful. At least we now move on to Best Robot. The LG Hub Robot. We've seen a gaggle of new robots introduced at CES this year that use Alexa to converse with their owners. But the LG Hub paired this capability with a wide range of LG appliances and bots, turning its friendly bot into a command and control center for your house. Let me interject. You mean just like Alexa? Just like Siri? Just like Google Home? Right off the bat, this article gives me no reason that this is more impressive than any other voice-activated robot out there. The article continues. You can use the hub to take a peek inside your LG refrigerator, turn down the heat on your LG dryer, or start up your LG lawnmower mowing robot. Of all the Alexa integrations we saw at CES this year, this one seemed to be the most interesting and fully baked. But earlier in the... Oh, actually... No, I take that back. It just implied it. I mean, when push comes to shove, it's not really much of a game changer. It's just how Alexa works. Best TV. An actual award and quite the classic when it comes to CES. The LG Wallpaper OLED. Now, I'm not going to lie. I actually think this one is really cool. And this is probably the one pick they have that I agree with. we were pretty evenly torn between this and Sony's OLED for my top pick CES. Or my top CES pick. A closed-door demonstration of the Sony Bravia made it even harder. The picture is superb, and the acoustic sound surface system that Sony developed, where audio resonates from the TV panel itself, sounds way nicer than I expected. But in terms of TVs that make onlookers go, oh wow, there was really nothing in the show that compared to LG's signature OLED. It's not quite as thin as a credit card, but it's no thicker than a couple of coins stacked together. And that's amazing. Measurements aside, it's a very expensive preview of the wall art that TVs will become over the coming years. On an even more interesting note, the TV, the only cord coming off it is the power cord. The thing is only as thick as 2 dimes stacked on top of each other. Now, the only thing I don't like about this sucker is the fact that it's OLED. OLED has a burn-in problem right now. And it probably will for the end of time, just like plasma did. So if you ever try to use this thing as, say, a on-the-wall painting that you can change, not a good plan. It's not going to work. Which is a darn shame, because its thickness is just demanding it to become wall art. Best in show. Amazon Alexa. Here is my problem. Amazon Alexa was not for show in this show. Integration with Amazon Alexa was what was in everything. Everyone wanted to be in with Amazon Alexa. Everyone. Literally everyone. So I don't know how you can say that Amazon Alexa was best in show when everything integrated Alexa. The only way this could have been a worse best in show is if they said best in show electricity. What a terrible, terrible cop-out. And that's really all this ends up being. This whole award segment here from The Verge is a massive, giant cop-out. And I do pray that somehow in my rush to try and find the CES awards, that I was wrong. That this was, in fact, not the official CES awards. Because if these were the official CES awards, I would be spamming the administrators of CES to disbar The Verge from ever being the judge of any awards ever at CES. As I've said before, this isn't some sort of kooky, happy anime convention. This is no place where people just bring in their kookiest, funniest little things to go show off. This is the Consumer Electronics Show. The biggest electronics show in the world. This is where the future of technology is showcased, and has showcased the future of technology year after year after year after year after year after year. This is the show that showed what drones could do 4 years before the common folk even knew what the word drone meant. And common folk is the wrong word. Better word would have been those who aren't obsessive with this like I am and other tech bloggers are. It blows me away that any editor could have looked at this list and said, yeah, I'm okay with this. I am happy putting this out and having it represent me and my company. I am not exaggerating at all when I say if I was in charge of this, every single reporter, editor, any human being that worked for The Verge that was sent down to CES, I would fire. This is appalling. This is disgusting, and this is a disgrace. And you might say that I'm taking it a little too seriously, but come on. Best in Show, Alexa. Best laptop. The most generic 13-inch laptop you could find. Best 4-in-1. Best Echo. Best millennial transport. Best ugly. Best writable. Best swag. I can't believe that anyone looked all of this over and said, "Yep, that looks good." Deplorable. Disgusting. I'll be right back. I gotta get the taste of this out of my mouth.
Hey everyone, Eagle Falcon here. I just wanted to talk for a minute about everything that's actually happened since we started. Now, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I did miss Eagle Eyes on Tech's anniversary. I know. I feel bad too. But it's not only the fact that I missed the anniversary on October 20th, which I'm now saying now so I don't forget for next time, but it's also I'm actually closing in on my other hobbies and anniversary. If you don't know, I stream on Twitch, and if you actually do enjoy my content here on Eagle Eyes on Tech, you really should check me out on twitch.tv/eagle_falcon, where every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday we go through and just play games, have fun, play along with some Jackbox games on some days, go through campaigns, and just kind of laugh along, crack jokes, and it's just a great grand old time. So be sure to check me out there, and we will be getting back to to some actual serious tech news very, very soon. Like right now.
How did I end up here?
Welcome back, Live on Tech. I'm your Falcon. So, I have good news. I did think something was kind of weird about the way those awards were. That's because they are not the official awards. Now, one thing to actually point out, CES doesn't officially end until tomorrow. Now, normally, I think the awards are handed out on the second day of CES, so they should already be out. But according to the actual website, there appears to only be the CES 2017 Innovation Awards. And this could be the only official awards. But I don't see Best in Show, I don't see People's Choice or anything of that nature. It could be after TechCrunch botched it last year that CES might have just canceled the awards altogether, which isn't the worst choice in the world. I mean, let's be real honest. Last year, what was Best in Show? Best in Show was the Bolt. The Chevy Bolt, an electric car. Whoop-de-doo. Come on. In any case, let's talk about some other interesting things that are actually interesting. Well, I want to talk about the Asus Vivo Mini PCs. These are Mac Mini style desktops. Now, Asus did these before, but there's a few things to note here. First off, these new ones are running Intel Kaby Lake processors. Which finally, hooray! Finally, companies are using Kaby Lake. Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. Although after the benchmarks came up for Kaby Lake, I really now do completely understand why a lot of companies didn't even bother using Kaby Lake. So, I think it's actually a good time now to say Razer, Alienware, Apple, I officially retract my criticism about you guys. And Microsoft too. Anyone who I have criticized in the past, these past 2 months, for using Skylake processors instead of Kaby Lake, I retract my statement. You have clearly made the correct decision. And I am sorry. I was wrong. You were right. See? It's not that hard. It's not that hard to admit when you are wrong. So that being said, let's look at these things that are running Kaby Lake. So we have some that are just, your basic sort of the new Core i3s, Core i5s, and they're running integrated Intel. Here's one that is more interesting to me. And that's the VM65 Vivo Mini. This one is running a GeForce 930M inside it. In addition to having the capability for mounting two 2.5-inch drives, either SSDs or HDDs, of course. Built-in Wi-Fi, 3 USB 3.0s, 3.1 ports. And starts at $550. It's okay. But the fact that they're going to stick in the 930 in there instead of, a 10-something kind of stands out as kind of a weird choice. Although the really weird one to me is this one here, the VC66, the beefier looking one of the three. Allows both M2 slots, two 2.5-inch drives, built-in RAID connectivity, has DVI, HDMI DisplayPort. But this one starts at $499 and goes up to $799. But it goes back to integrated Intel. So less power. This one makes no sense. But now the one that actually catches my eye the most is this first one. It is an M2 slot for a hard drive and starts at $275. That's pretty cheap. Just shy of $300 for a brand new little PC. It's like figuring out what to do with a Raspberry Pi. I mean, except 10 times the price. And also 100 times the power. But in any case, that's the Asus Vivo Minis. Let's move on to the weird side of CES. See, now you thought that the toothbrush that The Verge declared was the biggest hype, which, by the way, what were you thinking? The biggest hype? A toothbrush? Come on. I can't, I'm sorry. I can't get over that. Who says that a toothbrush is the biggest hype? You know what would be a bigger winner for that award? Alexa. Alexa was all the hype at CES because everything ran Alexa. And everyone kept saying that Alexa's going to be integrating this and that and that and that and that and everything before CES. So how the... okay, let me get back to this thing. It's going to be extremely difficult for me to not rip on The Verge anymore today, but I'm going to try. We have here a smart internet-connected hairbrush with accelerometers and gyroscopes to measure the quality of your brush strokes. Oh, you see, this is what CES is about. CES is a showcase about various companies, in this case L'Oreal, going well above and beyond to say, here's what we could do. I don't know who would use it or why, but here it is. Which really just makes me more infuriated that the most generic laptop in the world was ranked best laptop. Okay, I'm losing my cool again. Let's move on. Now, here's one that really looks interesting. And unfortunately, I don't think Asus put a spec out for this thing. Oh, they did. Never mind. Here's an interesting little desktop. This is the Asus Vivo PC X. It is an Xbox One sized desktop. Now, I have been trying for a long time to make an Xbox-sized desktop. The problem I always run into is trying to get the cost low enough. This guy does not accomplish that either. But just look at the design for this for a moment. This thing is running an Intel Core i5 7300 HQ, so quad core, an HM175, so not the best chipset in the world, but you gotta make cuts somewhere. An NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060, 8 gigs of memory, up to 2 terabytes of storage, up to 512 gigabytes of M2 SATA SSD, 4 USB 3.0s, 2 USB 2.0s, a 3-in-1 audio jack, an RJ45, 2 HDMI, one DisplayPort, built-in 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, Windows 10, all running on 230 watts. It actually is kind of impressive. There's only a few things I don't really like about it. One, the graphic card is soldered in. There is no upgrading this graphic card ever. And that's already my first problem with it. Second, the cooler design on the inside, although looks like it's a blower, the cooler for the CPU is dissipation based. Or is that for the GPU? I'm not sure. Either way, the CPU and GPU are both integrated. In fact, I'm willing to bet the one that's running on the blower is the CPU, just because it's only one pipe, and this dissipation system over here is the GPU. That's my guess. So on one hand, I do love the look of this thing. The one we get inside, this is a nightmare. Oh my god, this is a fugly nightmare. To put in perspective, not only can I do better, I have done better. And I have done better for less than this thing costs. This costs $799. $800 for an Xbox One competitor. Let's just get this one out of the way. Patriot has launched a massive line of new keyboards, mice, headsets that are all super, super gamer focused. I mean, my god. A Christmas tree has fewer lights than these guys. I do encourage you to actually look at these. You can find these pictures at PC Per if you're listening to the audio version. Just look up Patriot off. Just look up Patriot. Patriot CES 2017. You'll find it. I mean, right off the bat, I mean, they have two mice. One looks a bit like what you'd expect from a gaming mouse. The other one, my god, I don't know who, what, or how designed this. But there's like a complete RGB strip at the bottom. Very Razer Chroma-esque. On the side, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 buttons scattered throughout the entire side, of which 7 of them would be at risk of the right side of your palm hitting any of them at complete accident. The top, you have a scroll rocker and a scroll wheel, and quite possibly another 4 buttons. Why? Why did anyone design this? Now, I'll be fair, they are relatively cheap compared to other Christmas tree style mice. The one that is tamer is $30. The one that is a decoration is $60. So you compare that to the razor equivalents of about $100, and it's cheaper. Look, I like pretty lights, and I don't know why I'd get this. Oh my god. It's just... Moving on. Actually, no, I know why I'd get this. I would hang this from a tree. I would hang this from a Christmas tree. Patriot has the same sort of thing going on with their headsets. Virtual 7.1 surround sound, USB powered, blah, blah, blah. Not much to really talk about, but the pictures also don't show much about the headsets themselves, so I have a hard time judging them. So I'm not, and going to move on to their keyboards. And their keyboards, much like the mice, are way over the top. But at the very least, a keyboard is where you want a whole lot of showboating. I mean, who doesn't when push comes to shove? You got the light up strip at the bottom. Every single key is RGB based, so it'll light up however you choose. They're both mechanical keyboards, so you can just pop off the keys and just wipe it down. No problems there. The keyboards I actually can respect a lot more, and this is a much better buy choice than the mice, that's for sure, because I mean, I can't get over this mouse. I don't even know what to say about that mouse, so I'm going to run away from it. This is something I actually do want to talk about. I'm going to skip an Asus article, because we're now on the hour 3 of this 1 hour podcast. So we got to start wrapping it up. So here we have what appears to be a very thick thumb drive. This thing looks approximately... I'm holding here a pretty cheap 2 gigabyte flash drive. This is about the size you expect. Roughly 1.5 inches in length. I don't know, 5 millimeters high. This thing, the Kingston I can talk, I swear. Kingston Data Traveler Ultimate GT USB 3.1 portable SSD. It is technically a flash drive, in the fact that it is shaped like a flash drive and runs on flash memory. But it is much thicker. It is 72 millimeters by 27 millimeters by 21 millimeters. It is approximately, and I had to go by approximately because I don't have a ruler, it is approximately 5 times bigger than this 2 gigabyte flash drive that I have here that's just a throwaway. It's even bigger than my it's about that size compared to my 32 to 16 gig flash drive too. There is one key difference with these flash drives. The internal capacity. First off, it runs on USB 3.0, so the data transfer is going to be ridiculous. Second, the capacity is 1 and 2 terabytes. That's right. 1,000 or 2,000 gigabytes. Well, actually, it'd be 1,028 or 200. Whatever. You get the point. It's terabytes. It's measured in terabytes. Need to back up an entire system? There you go. One fell swoop. Done. The entire system is backed up. Now the only problem is that it is thicker and chunkier, so plugging this thing in, it's going to take up a few USB ports unintentionally. So, if you do have one of those cheap little 1-foot USB 3.0 extension cords, extremely helpful here. Even if you don't, whatever. Just plug in the front, you're ready to roll. Even if it's USB 2.0, it's still going to hold it all. Just plug it in, start doing the transfer, and go, okay, I'm going to go make lunch. I want to talk for a moment about Acer and this little gem. Now, I can't remember who I had this discussion with, which is a darn shame. And I'm sure it's going to dawn on me later. But I said an 18.4-inch laptop is one of the biggest laptops ever made. The only exception being the 21 and 22-inch laptops made way back in the day that were built more for the screen size than they were for the power. The evolution of the powerful laptop has been interesting to say the least. We've gone from 2009 to it being the most powerful laptops being the 17-inchers, to around 2011 letting the gaming laptops remain at 17 inches, but the mobile workstations getting nowhere bigger than 15. And even the 17s, nobody used them. Gaming laptops then eventually getting up to 18 inches to allow for dual graphic cards and more cooling dissipation. And even now, we're going back to the realm of 17 inches. Until this laptop. Now, before I begin, let me just get a little bit of a disclaimer off my chest first. Before I started doing podcasting, I ran a used computer shop. It was called Reforged Computers. I have refurbished countless laptops. Asus was always the lowest quality. Always. There might have been an occasional branch of, okay, look, this particular HP line was notorious for scorching its own graphic card. Or this Dell, the screws mount into an aluminum base, so constant opening and closing causes the hinges to pop loose. There are various this and that design flaws. Acer always had a design flaw. And usually it just came down to the fact of the entire laptop was usually made of recycled milk cartons. And I don't know what the motherboard was made out of, but it was definitely flammable. It was always the worst quality. And it always felt like you just went and bought buyer's remorse. It's a sensation that's hard to pin down. Because even when you go out and get like an Asus netbook, one of those $100 or $200 little things, that you know you just went and bought basically an expensive calculator running Linux, the Acer felt cheaper somehow. So, when I hear that Acer makes a gaming line called Predator, I shudder. I cringe. It's horrifying. I'm trying to think of a car equivalent. But no matter how hard you try, you could still say, yeah, I could see Ford doing this, or what would be a good example? It would be like saying Tesla went and made a semi-truck. Even, no, that's not the same either. Man, I can't think of a car equivalent, because there's no car company that's as bad at their job as Acer. I mean, you could say the U-Gol, but U-Gol isn't around anymore. Well, in any case, you look at this thing, and it's amazing. This is a laptop that was first originally announced back in August. And I ignored it back in August because, well, I mean, come on. Acer making a gaming laptop? That just makes you cringe and just veer away and go, nope. But I want you to listen to these specs. The display, 21 inches, wide FHD. This is a 21:9 aspect ratio. This is cinema widescreen at 2560 by 1080. 120 gigahertz refresh rate, IPS, G-Synced, 2000R curved screen. Running a 7th generation Intel Core i7 7820HK overclockable quad-core processor. Now, one thing I have to look at real quick. I do not know if that is a full-sized Intel processor or if that's a laptop processor. I can't find the TDP. Okay, it's a 45-watt TDP, so it's a laptop processor. Still crazy clock speed, 2.9 gigahertz base clock speed, up to 3.9 gigahertz max turbo. 4 cores, 8 threads. Easily overclockable up to 4 gigahertz. Graphic cards. 2 GTX 1080s SLI with 16 gigabytes of GDDR5X VR RAM combined. Now, granted, you're probably only going to go out half of that most days. That's still insane. 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. You have 2 M2 SSD slots, and two 2.5-inch SATA slots. Oh, and one more 2.5-inch SATA slot for a 1 terabyte drive. There is a 5-fan cooling system, 3 AeroBlade fans, whatever the heck that is, aerodynamic design airflow, don't know what that is, 9 heat pipes, dust defender plus cool boost fan control. That is all just generic buzzwords. Doesn't tell a whole lot. Killer Double Shot Pro Ethernet, 802.11ac Killer Wireless LAN, and up to a gigabyte LAN, of course, with Bluetooth 4.1. 3-way sound that emotes tweeter, squawker, and woofer. Now, I'm going to admit right here, I am not an audiophile, despite having this mic that's not working today. But, I think you might be making those terms up. I mean, woofer obviously is the term for subwoofer. Even my 18-incher has a subwoofer. But what the heck? Alright, back to the specs. Smart amplifier boost, Dolby Audio Premium, Acer True Harmony system, 4 speakers, 2 subwoofers. Webcam, 720p HD video and audio recording. For the I/O ports, we have one USB 3.1 Type-C, that's a Thunderbolt 3 port, 3 USB 3.0 ports, and an additional USB 3.0 port with off-power charging, 1 HDMI that supports 4K, 2 display ports that support G-Sync, an SD card reader, 1 mic in port, 1 headphone out, RJ45 Kingston Lock keyboard. It is a mechanical keyboard, Cherry MX switches. The backlighting, of course, is RGB, 16.7 million colors. No idea if that's per key. Usually they do that. I don't know, though. And numerical pad can be flipped over and used as a precision touchpad. There's Dolby IX eye tracking features, programmable keys, customizable maintenance panel, Windows 10, 88 watt hours, so this thing will power for a grand total of 6 seconds. Dimensions, 22.36 by 12.38 by 3.26 inches. Weight, 19.4 pounds. My God. You know, it's not quite all that often I look at a laptop and say, what has science done? But my God, what has science done? Good Lord. Now, I want a look under the hood of this thing. I want to see how this thing is constructed. I want to know the materials of this thing. And I'm curious about this laptop. And I'm cautious about it. Now, I'm going to be real honest. If you somehow do have the $8,999 to buy a laptop like this, I certainly don't, by the way, I will strongly caution you from buying this laptop, because Lord knows, if there's anything that is more horrifying than Acer, it's Acer trying to do something like this to get their name out of the mud, only to fall flat on their face. I'm going to let other people figure out how good this thing is, but I'm not going to lie. Whoa. I mean, there's a lot about this laptop I don't like. The placement of the keyboard being so far forward, the mechanical keyboard on a laptop. Trackpad being flipped over to become a numerical pad. I don't get that one at all. And then I'm looking at the, I don't know what you'd call that, the palm rest of this thing. It says like conquer new worlds above the keyboard. The keyboard's placed all the way to the front of the laptop, by the way. There is no actual palm rest. So there's that problem. But then there's like a fan or something like right next to it that's glowing, and I need to see the interior of this thing. I really do. For science. And now finally, I want to talk about this little article. This is something that amuses me for all the wrong reasons. I am just going to read the headline. Annoy the neighbors from the comfort of your couch. 3D printed remote controlled snowblower. First off, if I could, I would totally use a remote controlled snowblower from my couch. Who wouldn't? I want to find the company to go make a remote controlled snowblower, or like a Roomba style snowblower. Just set up the posts at the edge of your driveway, and just say, "Okay, robot, go onward, shovel that driveway or snowblow that driveway." And yeah, you could be an obnoxious prick and just, like, throw the snow directly at your neighbor's window or something. But honestly, around here, where there's more and more people who have legitimately gotten hurt shoveling thick, heavy snow, I see this as a huge advancement. I would get one of these in a heartbeat if I had the money. Chat says they would buy a slave to shovel for them. Wouldn't a remote-controlled snowblower be just as good? I mean, really, when push comes to shove? Though, the one thing that has me a little worried about this thing is the fact that it's 3D printed. And while I do think 3D printed things is really cool, the customization, the edits you can do, the problem with 3D printed anything is the fact that the quality is not as good because you're doing it from plastics. And that's always a pretty big downside when push comes to shove. And that, unfortunately, my friends, is where we're going to finally end this 1 hour long podcast. That was totally only 1 hour. Thank you all for listening. Please do give a follow for this podcast here on Podbean or on iTunes, wherever you listen it to. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week at noon for a podcast that'll actually last 1 hour, hopefully with a real mic.